Let's do this shit again today. It is the 22nd installment of what I'm calling a web series entitled Liam Small, Abridges, A History of Newfoundland. 15 pages a day, or as best you can, every day until the bars reopen, if they reopen, if we're ever allowed to get together in groups more than 10 people. Lovely to see you. No new cases today. That's nice. Just 1 second there. I'm gonna grab one of my little yellow buddies here. Never been much for Coors, but Coors Original I can fuck with. Okay, so I might release 2 of these tonight because my sleep cycle is totally backwards. I don't know how you guys are doing. Better than me. You don't see these things get posted in the day because I wake up at 6 p.m. a lot of the time. I record these. Right now it's 11:45. It'll take me a little while to do it, and then it takes me an hour to get it all uploaded, but then if I'm on the beers, sometimes it doesn't get done. Okay, moving on. Last going off. Now, in the last installment, we were talking about pirates. Just ended on pirates. Sorry, privateers. And we're going to keep that up for a second. There's pirates. They're plundering some shit. Actually, we're not going to keep up on that. Pardon me, that's an early burp. Take a drink. That'll be 1. Okay, so we got this guy, Caesar Collick. Caesar Collick is this fella. I didn't know. Oh, yeah, sorry. We talked about pirates. There's some pointless story about this fucking fella named Broke. He captured an American ship called the Chesapeake. I don't know why it's there. Anyhow, okay, so after Tremlett, who is our court justice right now, or our Supreme Court justice, so Tremlett's in power, but after he left, we got this guy, Caesar Collick. His name comes up a bunch. Old name, not sure how to pronounce it, Colelough, but it could be a C because the book is old and stupid. I'm calling him Colic, okay? So like a fucking colic baby. Anyway, and this guy sucked apparently. Colic was Colic remained in St. John's for 3 years. He was not much of a lawyer, and he was a very sorry administrator. He had, however, shrewd mother wit, and the true Hibernian faculty. Again, Hibernia was like Irish land, is a term they had for that. He had a Hibernian faculty for gamaging the Saxon, and paid particular court to Sir Richard Keats, impressing on His Excellency the great and patriotic services of Caesar Collick. So Caesar was the next guy to come along. It just says here, DW says, I regret the inexorable requirements of space prevent me from quoting more of his humorous and fantastic Irishman's letters, but it is quite clear that in a difficulty he was little better than an old woman. He got out of all of any troubles by simply relying on the strong common sense, personal influence, and energy of McBrayer at the time, who was now a magistrate, a major commandant, and president of the Commercial Society. Super interesting shit, right? Nothing better than learning about who governors were. It's so painful sometimes. Like, until fighting starts, I really... This fucking bureaucratic stuff, man, Anyway, Collick is in 391. Make sure I'm staying on. Okay, so during Collick's time, apparently there's a bit of rioting going on. So this is more fun. Or there was at least some infighting a lot between the Irish, mostly from people from Waterford versus people from Wexford. Few of the boys just repping their towns for the most part. It wasn't like politically driven. It was really just like people just getting into scraps, I guess, just fucking going out and flattening fellas, right? I'm on Wexford's side. My family are Doyles, who are from Wexford, so go Wexford. Collier had a pretty difficult time, apparently dealing with a lot of the fighting. He didn't really command a lot of respect. I love that old lady comment. But yeah, so he didn't have so much of a good go of it. Just over here on page 391, it says, when all this blew over, referring to the fighting. Yeah. Blew over. Then he begins about the Irish faction fight. Yeah, not the fights, when some other fucking boring dispute was over. When all this blew over, then he begins again about the Irish faction fights on the Barons. When General Finn stripped to fight General Muldowney for the honour of Waterford against the Yellow Bellies of Wexford. These fights were simply for diversion? Oh, I guess he's spelling it like the way they would say diversion, I guess. Diversion. Fights were simply for diversion. The town was dull after the fishery was finished. There was no politics or House of Assembly, no police office, no theatres, not even a bazaar. What could an Irish boy do in those times without a bit of lively fun? Get in a row. McBrayer, who knew the Irish well, laughed at the whole thing. The Chief Justice, they call it the Great Riot. I don't know what, they don't really talk about what kicked it off, but anyway, the Chief Justice's description of the Great Riot is very good in its way. The constables came in to say that if he did not go out to the town, would be in ruins. This message, he writes, was delivered without any other. So basically, the constables come over and they're like, "Dude, you gotta go out here. Like, if you don't go out, like, the town will be in ruins." Or like, but then one of the boys was saying, like, if you go out in these riots, they're liable to fucking string you up or something like that, right? So his wife is like telling him not to go, and he's like, "Oh no, I'll go." He goes out to like the garrisons, I think, Fort William, he started firing the guns from the fucking the top of the hill there to signal that like people were invading or coming into the harbor. Right, there wasn't, but that was his diversion to scare them all the fuck off. So he ended all the riots without having to lift a finger. I'm a pretty smart fella. Yeah, he just, anyway, so after all that, which is a cool little story, then DW goes back to attacking Collick again. Judge Caesar Collick was no lawyer from a correspondence with the very Attorney General of Nova Scotia. The act provided, oh my god, so fucking boring. Quick note here, in 1800, there was a merchant society in St. John's. That's when that was formed. So all the merchants, of course, got together in order to sort of build just one route of correspondence, sort of on behalf of all their interests, to talk to the British government, I guess. Okay, cool. We're all on board. We're on page 392. Oh yes, the aim of maintaining more official correspondence between the merchants on the island, and the governor of England, blah blah blah. Okay, so the two leading men on whom Collick, during his absence, or during the absence of the governor in England. So yeah, we didn't really have a governor in England there for a minute. So Collick relied on, in times of difficulty, were his fellow McBrayer and young Mr. James Stewart, a very able, intelligent, gentlemanly man. This was a big chunk right here. It is very doubtful if the conspiracy referred to by Collick really ever existed, except in his own imagination. This is about the riots. There was, however, a good deal of excitement amongst the people, especially the Irish, who formed a great bulk of the shipped servants in St. John's, like the youngsters, concerning the change in wages. The rumor had gone aboard that the wages were to be cut. I don't think that was the case. Some of the merchants were very shrewd businessmen. They knew that the war was drawing to a close. This is America, England, France. The war was drawing to a close. France and America were exhausted. Napoleon's star was on the way, and Trafalgar and Wellington's peninsular campaign had deprived Europe from his thraldom. They fully realized that if the men shipped on the old terms, should peace be suddenly proclaimed, or sorry, the merchants, if the merchants shipped on the old terms, should peace be proclaimed, the war prices for fish they were then getting would come down with a crash. With the high prices they had to pay with provisions and outfit, with the large sums of wages falling due into the autumn, they'd all be toast. McBrayer forcibly impressed on his own brother merchants that they had all been making money. The war had lasted with the French almost continuously since 1789. So and most of them believed that it would still continue. It did not, therefore, take the wise precaution of preparing for a sudden fall in the markets. No, this bubble will never burst, right? And not like markets. Now, I suppose like it's the early 1800s, so maybe the understanding of supply and demand, or the way markets work and crashes work, may have been lost on the buys. But you'd think we'd have figured it out in the following 220 years, but No, we still just keep filling that bubble till she pops, don't we? All right. So basically what they're saying is, what he's saying is that war has been going on with France since the 1789, basically. And they'd all been profiting so much from this, and the boys wanted to keep profiting. And so, some of the merchants were getting worried, going, "No, man!" Like, so they knew, they had the foresight, right? And there was, a good reason for that. Boys didn't listen. They didn't prepare. Basically saying that, you know what, what's going on with the colors here? I feel like I'm getting lighter and darker all the time. But the boys were saying, Anyway, needless to say, they didn't prepare. They didn't store away for a rainy day. They're like, "Nah, let it ride. It'll be fine." What could possibly go wrong? Meow, meow, meow. We do go into some detail about how Newfoundland was killing it back then during wartime, which is kind of just the point we just left down there. They were ordering all their supplies from Britain, whereas before we used to use America almost exclusively. We profited well, and maybe for the first time ever, the merchants were being cool to the servants and their helping hands. The boys were actually starting to pay out, which things were so good, even the lower class, the help were getting help. Amazing. As an illustration that it was wartime and high wages, we have the enormous quantity of 426,000. This is how he measures how good things were going at the time. It is an illustration that it was wartime and the high wages. We have the enormous quantity of 426,000 gallons of rum and spirits imported, besides all the French brandy captured in the French and American prizes. A prize is a ship you take, or your plunder. There was nearly 17,000 men employed in the fishery and the trade, and this would give about 26 gallons of rum per person. Gallons of rum per person. That's a lot of rum, man. And probably that really shitty American swilly rum that they were talking about there before. But this amount imported was only a small portion of the liquor brought into the colony. There were prizes with whole shiploads of champagne and large cargoes of French brandy and wines. All were sold by the prize agents in St. John's. It had always been told as a tradition that the head of the firm prize agents never asked anyone to his table under a first lieutenant. Anyway, that's just some more fucking shit. No doubt the merchants were either encouraged to give these high wages to their servants and good rates on stuff, because notoriously these guys have been real capitalist about this whole thing. These high wages by the results of 1813, or else they were compelled to do so against their will. DW thinks most probably they acted on compulsion. Certainly no prudent men would run such fearful risks if they could help it, as in risking, say, like an overthrow or a revolt or something like that. If things are so good, you don't want to make that class divide too wide again, because, my goodness, history is teaching us a lot. Okay, so on page 395, let me just double check here. During Keats' government, the greatest event occurring under the governorship of Sir Richard Keats was the order from home government to grant titles to lands in the colony. This change was brought about by various causes, by the suggestions and recommendations of Gower and Duckworth, but at the last chiefly by an organized determination on the part of the Merchant Society to build houses without His Excellency's consent. So they don't want to, they want to build some stuff. You want to buy some land. You don't want to have to fucking petition and get wait all that time for a letter back and all this sort of shit, right? So you want to get it done now. Things, snail mail's bad now. Well, 1800, right? So the guys want to be able to buy land and stuff. A fund. Now, this got stupid for me for a second trying to read all this. So it says here, okay, so after this, so the merchants wanted to do this. So notoriously, anything the merchants really want to do or push through should probably be taken with some skepticism, or what's your motive, you bunch of psychopaths. This fucking surgeon guy writes, and I'm going to try and get into it. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm not going to get into some stuff. But okay, so it says, a fund was provided to test the legality of the prohibitory orders against the erection of the buildings. This movement, which was peaceable and constitutional, is stigmatized by someone named Pedley as refractory. No doubt it was thought so by the governor, so it was a shitty thing. The author and instigator of this opposition to English tyranny was Dr. William Carson, who is very detailedly shown in this picture of a man with a big nose and a silhouette. The English, yeah, so, and Dr. William Carson, to DW here, is considered to be the real founder of agriculture and constitutional government in the colony. So this guy was a little bit of a shit disturber, okay? We meet Dr. Carson. Yeah, he was a bit of a rascal, this guy. Carson, a determined, pertinacious character, was not to be put down by any number of old admirals or hangers-on, like Collock and the government house clique. He stuck to his point and ultimately got his pay. Because he started that fund to protest the boys, namely Keats and Collock. He actually wasn't getting paid as like a volunteer surgeon to the brigade. As a paid surgeon to the volunteer brigade, because that's what volunteering means. So this guy was like, "Oh, you're gonna try and fuck me up." So this doctor surgeon was good with words, and a bit of a pain in the guy's asses, I think, from what I can tell. So Collock was invoked by His Excellency to do what should be done to this daring pamphleteer. So Dr. Carson was starting to write what it was called pamphlets, which is like little newsletters, or think of it as a pamphlet with some basic information on it for you. Probably not very heavy on the graphics, but he wrote some pretty slanderous things about like the governor. He was just being fucking punk rock about it, basically. I mean, this fucking surgeon was like, "Man, I got some problems with the way you're doing stuff, and you're gonna hear about it in a very eloquent way." What have I got here? Blah, blah, blah. Duckworth. Okay, not Collock. I said Collock and Keats. Duckworth and Keats. Excellencies Duckworth and Keats to possess their souls in peace, blah, blah, blah. And basically the guys were just like, "Hey, don't fuck with this doctor fella. Like, don't give him the time of day. Just leave him well enough alone. He'll protest. It'll go away." That was the advisement of the governor guys. Of course, they didn't, as far as I know. And it says, and basically apparently the names. Dr. Carson was right, and it says here, the statement of facts is unanswerable, and the conclusions on the subject of the government of the colony are the only ones that a reasonable man could arrive at. The first, published in 1811, contains, so he wrote 2 letters. The first in 1811 contains the libelous and scurrilous attack complained of by Governor Duckworth. So I'm gonna read you the attack because I haven't read it yet. So I want to know what this what this attack is gonna be. A naval commander accustomed to receive obedience, whether his orders are dictated by service or injustice, by reason or false break, cannot be expected to brook any temper opposition to the will of the man whose duty calls upon him to defend. You know what? I'm fucking over it. I'm sure it was a good one because it was worth writing about in here. Just finding it hard to care and brain no goody. 420 yesterday. Just having a bit of a hard time. Also, can I blame it on my shitty light situation? With that, no, I'm just illiterate. Okay. He has another letter here. I am far, far indeed from... Carson wrote 2 letters. That's all I'm gonna fucking say. He got into 2 letters, and... It's just pages. The print could not be smaller. Like, it's hard... I'm just gonna read a couple facts from this fucking shit. I also don't want dead air. I'm just gonna keep doing this for the following extracts are taken from the letter of the governor to Lord Bathurst. No, I don't care about... Okay, St. John's has a population of nearly 10,000 at this time. There's a fact. There's a fun fact. He seems to have grown out of its originals. Okay, St. John's is with a population of nearly 10,000 seems to have grown out of its original situation and to be changing its character from a fishery to a large commercial town, and for a considerable time past has offered such advantages to the farmer and gardener as to overcome all the restraints which nature and the policy of government have laid on the cultivation of a soil certainly less sterile than it has generally been considered. Even back then, we knew the ground was sterile, but maybe not that bad. So yeah, things are picking up. More than 1,000 acres are in cultivation, and as many more perhaps enclosed to produce, of which is confined to hay, potatoes, and vegetables of various kinds, crops of which may be seen as plentiful as in England, whilst the environs of the town, the natural beauties of which are very striking, present to the view several neat, well-cultivated, and productive little farms. So, we're picking up agriculture. That's a long way of saying we're growing shit. Again, it's a whole other page of that. I'm not reading it. You can't make me. So let's just move on. Okay, in 1815... In June 1814, there was a letter in the records from Hunter & Company paying admission to export a quantity of flour that the market is now so glutted that it is impossible to sell it, and that if not allowed to send away with it to be spoiled. So what we're seeing is an awful lot of supply, not that much demand. Psych, this has all been one big economics web series, podcast, boredom installment, quarantine therapy type exercise. So in 1815, both Collock and Sir Richard Keats left the colony, leaving Duckworth, basically. The Chief Justice was evidently terrified by the following letter. He put forth a proclamation immediately offering a reward of £100 for the discovery of the writer or of the person who affixed it to the courthouse gate, of course without result. I haven't read this letter either. This is the one I actually really wanted to read. Those other two fucking ones that Dr. Carson wrote, I have no interest in. This is the one I wanted to read because it was supposed to be so threatening in a way that it caused Collock and Keats to be terrified enough to leave the island, which is like, imagine if we could just make like Nalcor fuck off by writing a letter or something, you know? Something like that. Well, sorry, I mean government, but who really has the power here, right? Not on CBC, I can say what I want. So in the letter, to the Honorable Caesar Collock, Chief Judge in the Supreme Court of St. John's and over the island of Newfoundland, and C, and company, the humble petition of the distress of St. John's in general most humbly showeth. Words are different back then. That the poor of St. John's are very much oppressed by different orders from the courthouse, which they imagine is unknown to your lordship, concerning the killing and shooting their dogs without the least sign of the being sick or mad. We do hope that your lordship will check the justices that was the means for this evil proclamation against the interest of the poor families, that their dependence for their winter's fuel is on their dogs, and likewise several single men is that bringing out wood for the use of the fishery. If in case this business is not put back, it will be the means of an indifferent business, as ever the killing the dogs in Ireland was before the rebellion. The first instance will be given by killing crows and horses, and all other disorderly vice that can be comprehended by the art of man. We are sorry for grieving your lordship, any uneasiness for directing any like business to your honour, but timely notice is better than any violence. What may be the cause of what we not wish men at present? What may be the cause of what we not wish to meant at present? Weird. By putting a stop to this great evil. We hope that our prayers will be means of obtaining life everlasting for your lordship in the world to come. Mercy will you make, and mercy will ye give. Sounds pretty badass in a way. He's saying like, you're killing dogs and stuff, and like, well, we'll just start with killing birds, and then we can start killing horses, and then, who knows, we'll just start getting creative with it. At least that's what I got out of that threatening letter. So that was interesting. It was a bit of a cold read. Anyway, so following up on that, it says here that the Chief Justice should have known, as one experienced about his countrymen, that the threatening letter is a common Hibernian device, that whilst it is sometimes malignant, often enough it is the mere wanton trick of some idle vagabond who can write and wants to worry his neighbour. Magistrates of any standing, either in Ireland or amongst Irish people, should paper a trunk with such epistles. This one is very mild in tone, which, I don't know, I tried to do almost my best Werner Herzog on that one. It has not got even the traditionary coffin and crossbones at the head of it. It is more of a respectful word, than a threat of murder, as the affrighted Colic translated. During the troublesome times that were coming on the colony, it was probably better off that he did leave. Because, things are about to get kind of shitty. Given what was coming as a good thing he left, Colic was succeeded in the Chief Justice-ship by Francis Forbes, Esquire, a distinguished barrister of Lincoln's Inn. He was appointed on the 4th of August, 1816, and commenced the discharge of his duties on the 15th of July, 1817, and remained resident in the colony until the 6th of May, 1822. And if you thought we're finished there, we got 4 pages left. Anyway, so Forbes is our new justice. Colic is out, Forbes is in. Imagine, scary letter tacked to the door was enough to drive a couple of them away. Nice. Okay, so Justice Forbes won golden opinions from all the classes. The pages of the select cases in the Supreme Court of Newfoundland are an abiding monument to his profound learning and serene intelligence. So, this guy was respected, smart guy. Anyone with an Esquire on their name certainly sounds cool. You might still be a bit of a dickhead. Is it better for the light? I had a little space heater on and affected the lamp. Drawing too much power, I suppose. Heating elements and shit like that. We're almost done here. Okay, so this is cool. So we have a section called the faction fights. So the faction fights, we're all like Irish people. Remember when I said when those from Wexford and those from Waterford were getting into scraps on the road, buddy had to go up on top of Signal Hill, fire off the guns and stuff. Pardon me, take a drink. There's a little bit more of that. So I will read to you about, which I think might be the name of the episode, Street Fights and Mummers. So the faction fights went on for many years after Colic left. So this is factions of people originating from Irish towns over here defending their Irish town's honor. Cool. The faction fights went on for many years after Colic left. Yellow Belly Corner on the east side of Beck's Cove commemorates the spot where the wounded in the melee used to be washed in the little brook flowing to Beck's Cove. Now you know where Yellow Belly Brewery if that is not where that comes from, I'll be fucking damned. But that's cool. Reading that, I was like, man, that is that corner there. So that's a little fun piece of trivia for you. If I'm right, I could be making connections where there are none. I've been in the house a long time. You should see the charts I got done up in my room. Okay, so Beck's Cove, the Tipperary Clear Airs, the Waterford Waybellies, and the Cork Dadines were arrayed against the Yellow Belly faction, the Doones or Kilkenny Boys, and the Wexford Yellow Bellies. There were, besides the Young Colts and a number of other names for the factions, they fought with one another out of pure devilment and derivation. Nope, not derivation, out of pure devilment and diversion. He really writes like a fucking pikey in these quotations, which is interesting that they write in the accent. As an old Irishman explained it to me. Besides these scrimmages, there were plenty of fights when the fools or mummers came out from Christmas to Twelfth Day. These men were dressed up with high paper caps of a triangular form ornamented with ribbons. They wore white shirts sewn all over with ribbons and streamers. A good rig out cost both time and money. I guess rig out was the costume or the fight. A good rig out cost both time and money. The swabs were made of a bladder covered with canvas or a switch made sometimes of a cow's tail fastened to a stick. Some were dressed as women, while they wore long garments known as Not a word. They were all masked and ran at passengers with... Okay, yeah, so this is interesting. They were all masked and ran at passengers with an Indian yell, and they spoke in a falsetto voice, so they're... like, that kind of shit. Men were often beaten badly for old grievances by the fools, so, like, you're getting your comeuppance on this stuff. This sort of tradition kind of got a little shady. So yeah, men were often beaten badly for old grievances by the fools. And DW says, I remember as a boy how proud I used to be to shake the hands with a fool and to know what rigs Noah Thomas or Mick Toole were going out in. Each company had one or more hobby horses with gaping jaws to snap at people. The fools had to be put down by an act of parliament. They had to be put down, taken out back, and fucking dealt with. Mummers and fools were English customs dating back to the Saxon time, brought to this colony by the old Devonshire settlers. Mummering started with the Saxons. It's been on the go for quite some time, and it just took a few of us beating on our shitty neighbors to put an end to it. There you go, fun little section about street fights and mummers. You learned where the name of that bar came from. Damn it! Come on! Got another beer. Right, so mummers. That was cool. And what else did I find interesting about that? Yeah, so just all the Irish infighting and stuff like that. Which you almost think, I thought I would have been hearing more Irish and English violence at the time. I suppose it probably would have been cut right down if that was the case. So the first indication of mummering on the island. And then, what do we got here? Okay, yeah, so things were going really good. 1814 is wrongly generally stated to have been a regular great year, 950,000 quintals. We were just talking about fish for a minute, how things are going. Anyway, 1814 and 15 were apparently deadly years for the island. Probably some of the best. And right after 1815, in the winter of 1815, there was the crash. In December of 1815, some guy named Mr. Coote, the Supreme Surrogate, and Captain Buchan, of whom the whole Supreme Judge wrote the piece. I don't know. Things went to shit. The bubble burst in 1815. At the time, peace had come. After the crushing defeat of Waterloo on the 18th of June, 1815, the United States had made peace with England by the Treaty of Ghent. American and Norwegian fish flowed into the Mediterranean markets. Produce was selling abroad for less sometimes than 1/3 of the cost of the merchant. A panic ensued, and nearly all the houses in the trade went down. It's bad. Because with peace came, now they were relying on us, right? We were making that good wartime money. The catch of 1816 was considerable. Over 1 million quintals were exported. Prices, however, had become abnormally low, 14, 12, and even 10 shillings per quintal. The winters of 1815, 1816, and 17, and so on to 18 are memorable in the annals of the colony. In the winter of 1815, the capital and all the outports were in a state of actual starvation. The losses and insolvencies referred to by Coote had ruined the credit of